In this video, I'll be discussing my philosophy of facilitation and reviewing, and what the advantages, disadvantages are to each idea and technique, and how they can be used through activities and structures. This will be achieved by using my own personal experience and backing up this use with academic writings. Before I can describe what facilitation and reviewing is and how it's used, I first must ask myself, what is outdoor education and why do we facilitate? Each facilitation technique is different, with every one having a slightly different outcome depending on what is trying to be achieved. Facilitation and reviewing, according to the Oxford Dictionary 2019, is a person or a thing that makes progress easier, and states reviewing as a formal assessment or something with intention of instituting change if necessary. Within my philosophy, I simply regard it as someone who provides help and guide experience, with the reviewing at the end as a technique to reflect back on the activity. So I am an outdoor instructor, so these principles come into my everyday work. One method of facilitation I use is front-loading. This is the initial briefing of a group, start to finish run through of the activities, giving key points in advance of the experience. I usually use this as a collecting point to get everyone together in the same mind frame, focused on the activities ahead. This is a strong technique as it can be backed up by Priest and Gass, 2005, chapter 15, Basic Facilitation Techniques, where it talks about how often by briefing like this, it means the participants are excited for the activity and it distracts them from why they're doing the activity, making the learning experience that much easier. A criticism to this, however, whilst it's an effective technique, would be that it can often come across as spoon-feeding if done the wrong way. This is expressed through Greenaway 2004, Facilitation and Reviewing in the Outdoor Education. This is due to the amount of front-loading making the experience way too easy. A way to minimise this is to only brief participants to some elements, leaving in some elements of surprise. Another method is the use of isomorphic metaphors. This is where essentially I will facilitate an activity that symbolises that of a real-life lesson or progress. A prime example of a session I run is the woodland blindfold handline activity. This is where I use a length of rope, overcrossing and interlinking, perhaps entangled like a spider's web, and the participant must find the exit blindfolded. This is often used, and as it's an easy appeal for facilitators to symbolise the examples such as large. Another method I use is the use of isomorphic metaphors. This was first used after reading McDonald's 2000 Issues in Progress paper, where essentially I became to facilitate activities that symbolise that of a real-life lesson or progress. A prime example of a session I run is the woodland blindfold handline activity. This is where a length of rope is attached between trees and the rope is overcrossing and perhaps tangled like a spider's web, and the participant must find the exit. This is often used as it is easy and appealing to facilitators to symbolise large issues such as the struggles of finding your way out of addiction. This is a really simple yet powerful sensory and translating way for the participant to see a correlation between overcoming an activity and overcoming a real life situation. However, I feel through my practice, however, this activity, if involving metaphors of serious real life problems, can be very risky. Reason being, if the participant is unable to find the end of the handline, then they may translate this into not finding their escape to their problems, such as addiction. When reading McDonald's 2000 Issues in Progress, I came to find the solution as a way to run this effectively and still maintain the easy grasp and translatable impact. I simply use metaphors that are less professional and have less personal and and as a result have less consequence if the participant is unsuccessful. Through these simple, thought-provoking metaphors, it allows the participant to engage with their surroundings and therefore translate progress and development within the activity into real life. Often when running an activity, I use the sense of place as a facilitation technique. I began to use this technique after reading Harrison's 2010 Why Are We Here? Taking place into account in UK outdoor environmental education. This is almost a combination between facilitation and allowing the experience to speak for itself. It uses a sense of place to facilitate that experience. In personal experience, I've always found that place within the activity has a massive impact on engagement. As expressed through Harrison's 2010 writing, this is because the focus on place allows the participant to ask questions that they wouldn't in a more static environment. Another approach I use is allowing the mountains to speak for themselves. This term is used by Thomas James in his writing Can the Mountains Speak for Themselves? Meaning, can the outdoors be taken at face value simply as a good day out with no other factors required for the learning progress to occur? I use this method often as I believe the sheer impact of the outdoors alone can be enough to stimulate the outcome desired. This can be backed up by Pete McDonald 2000 Issues in Progress, where he talks about taking kids outdoors in the rain. However, through the experience of an off-routine day outside alone was enough to facilitate a good day out. Running a session and allowing the mountains to speak for themselves, I often use this along with another facilitation technique, as sometimes the mountains don't communicate to the participants. In Thomas James' 1980 Can the Mountains Speak for Themselves, he discusses a negative side that I agree with, that by simply allowing them to speak, staff may be transmitting very little culture and few values, meaning without additional bit of facilitation, maybe the learner takes very little or even nothing from the mountains speaking themselves. When it comes to reviewing an activity, I usually structure this in a way of gathering everyone together at the end of the session and go over the key outcomes that were achieved by the activities. My approach is backed up by Priest and Gass 2005 chapter 15, where it talks about my role allows the discovery of their own learning without adding my own judgment as to what a learning occurred. I remain as simply guiding the reviewing by asking questions, encouraging clients to share their experiences and personal observations. If the participant is reluctant to vocally speak in front of the group or get involved in the discussion, I use more creative mediums such as roleplay, beach and woodland art, or acting. This approach can be backed up by Priest and Gass 2005, Chapter 15, Basic Facilitation Techniques, where it talks about the use of non-verbal methods that will help include reluctant participants and allow for the reviewing process to occur. It also discusses the use of closed questions as a bridge to opening up into more descriptive responses. In conclusion, we can therefore say there are many important uses of facilitation and reviewing. Facilitation and reviewing can come in different forms, with each one being significantly more important depending on their use and the outcome required. The use of these techniques in each activity can be backed up or criticised by academic writings solidifying the way I've used them.